Welcome to the deep dive. We are really excited to jump into some pretty amazing source material you've shared with us for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got these excerpts from James Michener's novel Centennial, and it's just, well, it's a huge sweep of history, isn't it?
Yeah,
Geology, prehistoric life, humans arriving, conflict, all focused on one place.
exactly. And our job today really is to take these sources you sent over and just unpack them together. We want to pull out the key bits of info, the surprising facts maybe, and try to figure out what makes looking at history this way so fascinating.
So let's get into it. Curious to see what jumps out.
Okay, so where do we start?
Yeah.
The sources really go back, like way back. Deep time geology.
Right, hundreds of millions of years back.
Mhm.
The material describes this specific spot where Centennial eventually is, being at the bottom of ancient seas, not just once, but multiple times.
Wow, okay. And sediments just piling up.
Yeah, just silently drifting down layer after layer, building up rock formations, potentially 5,000 feet thick, according to the text. Kind of hard to wrap your head around.
5,000 feet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just sitting there, right? The land was moving.
Exactly. It wasn't static at all. Lands rise up out of the sea, then they get weathered down by, wind, rain, elements we don't even have anymore, and then repeatedly magma pushes up from the mantle, makes new shapes.
Which then get worn down again. So this constant churn,
Yeah.
building up, breaking
And pretty
down.
much, yeah,
Yeah.
right there in that one spot.
Oh,
But the sources also give us this contrast, which I thought was interesting.
oh yeah. What's that?
Well, while all this local churning is happening, around 250 million years ago, way over on the eastern edge of the continent, there's this massive mountain building event. Huge.
Okay.
Sediments piling up 40,000 feet thick this time. And then this immense pressure just crumples them, twists them into these incredible shapes you can still see today. It connects the small spot to like huge continental forces.
That really puts the local stuff in perspective.
Yeah.
40,000 feet. Okay, so jumping way forward now. Ice Age comes up next in the material. About 1 million years ago.
Uh-huh. And they mention potential causes, climate shifts, maybe changes in CO2 or, volcanic dust blocking the sun. Complex stuff.
And the glaciers themselves, they locked up so much ocean water that coastlines were actually exposed, right? Ones that hadn't seen air for ages.
Yeah. And for Centennial specifically, the big western glacier, it stopped short further north. But smaller glaciers did form in the Rockies nearby.
Ah, okay. So they still had an impact locally.
Definitely. They carved out valleys, shaped those standing rocks that make the area beautiful now. So even these huge global events leave a very specific local signature.
Makes sense. And this deep geology stuff, it also explains the minerals, the gold.
Right. The sources talk about magma intrusions, finding weak spots in the rock, filling cracks. That happens everywhere.
It's like here it was special.
Seems so. The material says this particular magma was rich in things like galena, silver, copper, and then specifically in Blue Valley, unalloyed gold.
Gold. Okay, that definitely catches the eye.
Yeah.
Always does.
It does. And, there's this neat comparison the sources make about geological time.
Hmm.
They say knowing the sequence, like Silurian follows Ordovician, Miocene follows Oligocene, it's as certain as knowing the order of U.S. presidents. You might not know the exact start date down to the minute, but you know the order and roughly how long each lasted.
That's a great analogy. It makes something so vast feel a bit more manageable.
Yeah, it gives you a framework.
Okay, so from rocks and time, let's shift to the giants walking on those rocks. The Diplodocus.
Ah, yes. Diplodocus, double beams. The material gives a really vivid picture, doesn't it? Massive body, that incredibly long neck, and the equally long tail for balance.
And the name, double beams, it comes from something specific in the tail.
16 vertebrae behind the hips had these paired flanges, like little bony shields underneath, and they protected a key artery running there. Pretty sophisticated design.
And it gets even more complex, right?
Right.
The way it actually moved.
Oh, totally. They described this powerful sinew, like a huge tendon running in a channel along the top of the spine, from the head all the way down the tail, anchored really securely at the shoulders and hips.
And the source uses this crane analogy, which is brilliant.
Yeah. The channel in the bones is the pulley, the sinew is the cable, and the huge torso is the counterbalance. The idea is, without this system, moving those incredibly long necks and tails just wouldn't have worked.
So they weren't just big and dumb, they were complex machines. Could even lift attackers.
That's the suggestion, like a crane claw. It really changes how you picture them, doesn't it? Not just lumbering giants.
Definitely. And there's that specific scene, the female Diplodocus hiding in the swamp.
Yeah, seeking safety near a white chalk cliff. submerging her whole massive body, just leaving the top of her head out to breathe. It's quite an image, finding refuge in the water.
But even for these giants, survival was brutal. The sources mention the eggs.
Oh, yeah. It's stark. Starts with 37 eggs, then predators just chip away small dinosaurs eating eggs. And the young ones, flying reptiles, carnivores, big fish in the water.
A whole gauntlet.
Totally. In the end, only 4 from that batch survive long enough to join the main herd. It really hammers home the constant danger.
Which brings us to that big question the sources raise the extinction.
Right. Around 65 zillion years ago, just as the new Rocky Mountains are rising, poof, the dinosaurs vanish.
All the big famous ones, Triceratops, T-Rex, Ankylosaurus, gone. And the sources call it a supreme mystery.
Especially because smaller reptiles, crocodiles, turtles, snakes, they made it through, and small mammals too. So what was the difference? Why them and not the giants? It's still a huge question.
A question that hangs over everything. But life finds a way.
Right.
A horse shows up.
Yeah, Equus, about 2 million years ago. The sources trace its evolution, this persistent adaptation from earlier forms like Eohippus, Merychippus, names you might remember from school.
And the key insight there seems to be that other horse-like creatures died out because they just weren't needed.
That's how the source puts it. They didn't adapt effectively to the changing world, the drying plains maybe, but the horse, with its speed and endurance, did. Adaptation was basically the entry fee for survival.
And the dire wolves.
Yeah.
The sources paint a pretty grim picture of them hunting horses.
Oh, yeah. Relentless. There's that scene where fleeing horses accidentally spook some camels. The camels panic and scatter.
Which just makes it easier for the wolves to pick off the slowest ones. Rough.
And that specific story about the stallion, mare, and colt, that one's tough to read.
Yeah, the herd moving relentlessly northwest, the colt struggling, the mare trying to keep them going, food running out.
And then the wolves attack, the colt cries, just dying out in that harrowing gurgle. It's incredibly visceral. Makes the past feel very real, very dangerous.
It really does.
Okay, so what about bison? The sources mentioned them too.
The original big one, like the mammoth, didn't make it either, couldn't adapt. But a smaller, tougher version came over from Asia, maybe around 6000 BC.
And they established the herds we think of, near those twin pillars the text mentions. Right, and we get these great little details of herd life. Baby calves trying to nurse from bulls, getting nudged away.
Or the calves in a stampede, somehow staying right with their mothers, stride for stride.
Yeah.
Incredible instinct.
Totally. And the bullfights, like Rufus holding off a challenger, that clever half-lame bull sneaking off with a cow while the others fight. It shows, social stuff, strategy, not just brute force.
Fascinating. The sources also zoom in on other animals, right? Like the beaver.
Yeah, the female beaver, driven by this intense purpose, building a dam, described as something she was bred for.
And her search for a mate is really detailed.
Yeah.
Sensing his scent, the tail slap communication.
Which could have been a challenge from another male, but luckily it attracted the right one. His pleased bark, showing her the lodge site, which he needed a partner to finish. Teamwork.
Then there's that eagle versus rattlesnake fight. That sounds intense.
Oh, it is. Almost mythical. The eagle frozen by the snake's stare, then the constriction, the eagle falling dead. But the snake is hurt too, has to recover in a crevice. Then this painful journey home. Very dramatic.
Wow. And the prairie dogs. Their defense system.
It's amazing. The lookouts chirp. Thousands vanish instantly down their holes. Just silent.
But the snake has a trick, right? Exploiting their curiosity.
Exactly. It just coils nearby and waits. Knows they have to peek out eventually. It's this constant game of cat and mouse, or rather, snake and prairie dog. Survival strategies clashing.
Okay, so from animals, the sources move to humans arriving in this place. And that first view of the Rockies.
Yeah, coming from the flat plains, the air is so pure, distances are totally deceptive. Leading to that hopeful cry, "Tonight we sleep in the mountains," only to find they're still days away.
You can feel the hope and maybe the slight disappointment. The sources also mention early skills, like making flint points.
Called a work of art. Napping the flint, making the groove for hafting with sinew, grinding the edges. Real ingenuity needed to survive there.
And then we meet specific peoples. The Arapaho. Grey Wolf saying, "Only the rocks live forever."
Yeah, a powerful line about bodies lost in battle, scalped by the Pawnee, which prevented entry to the spirit world's hunting grounds. Very stark.
And a key point the sources make is about the Arapaho not having horses in 1764. That was a huge disadvantage.
Massive. Humiliating compared to neighbors like the Comanche or Pawnee. It affected everything. War, hunting, even just moving camp. Imagine using dog travois when others have horses. Slow, difficult.
This desperation leads to that story about lame beaver and the horse raid.
Exactly. The council decides they have to do something. They learn the Pawnee trick for getting horses, breeding them. So the Arapaho plan this risky raid to steal some.
And Cold Ears makes that incredible sacrifice, staking himself out.
Yeah, as a lookout. Waves his arms to warn them. Even manages to lame one Pawnee horse. The Pawnee stop for the horse. The source nuts the horse was way more valuable to them than an old enemy brave.
So they just leave him there. He watches his people retreat without horses and dies alone. Tragic, even if it bought time.
It is. And Lame Beaver himself suffers a big loss on that raid, his pinto horse. Never like this one, he thinks. Just inconsolable grief shows that deep connection.
But his story continues. He marries Blue Leaf.
Yes, the council orders it, basically. Her brother gives her to him. She accepts with turbulent emotions. But later we find out her father, Cold Ears, actually wanted this.
Why?
He respected Pasquinel's bravery from an earlier encounter and mistakenly thought Lame Beaver was that brave dark man. So he hoped his daughter would marry someone like that. Complicated motivations.
Very. And Lame Beaver's endurance, escaping the Pawnee later, tied to the Sundance.
Yeah, the source credits the ordeal he went through in the Sundance for giving him the stamina to outlast his pursuers across the Platte River. They needed water, he could keep going.
There's also that alliance against the Comanche. Around 1776, Cheyenne and Arapaho chiefs working together.
Right, using sign language, drawing plans in the sand. The sources specifically say their plan was as clever as anything European generals came up with at the time, highlighting their strategic thinking.
But Lame Beaver's end is tragic. Preparing for his last fight.
Oiling his guns, remembering moments with Blue Leaf. The source says he went in determined to die, and his death just fuels more anger, more conflict.
Leading to sacking the Pawnee village, taking captives, that grim trade 3 girls for 1 horse.
Yeah. And his burial is described a chieftain's burial, high platform, horse, head and tail, his lance. Jumping snake keeps the rifle. His legacy continues in a way.
So after these deep roots of native life, the sources bring in the first outsiders, Pasquinel and McKeag.
Traders. Right. Pasquinel, the skilled coureur des bois. Beaver trapping, survival tricks, knowing how to handle or avoid different tribes. Very savvy.
And clever too, right? Hiding by the river, waiting for those stolen pelts.
Yeah, showing incredible patience and cunning, just watching the Pawnee movements, waiting for his chance.
And McKeag has his own struggles, that difficult portage, caching his pelts, the Ute threat changing his plans.
Leads him to meet Pasquinel, really. Their partnership gets sealed with the calumet, the pipe. Pasquinel tells him, tell them you're my partner. Sets up their whole dynamic.
Their first job together is getting those celts back and dealing with the rivermen who killed the Pawnee, who helped McKeag.
Right. Then trading guns to rude water. McKeag sees white scalps, feels sickened. But Pasquinel's just fatalistic. A trader often ends as a scalp. Harsh reality check.
McKeag spends that winter with Lame Beaver, learns some Arapaho, shows his adaptability.
And his ingenuity, too, fixing that rifle stock with hide and sinew, making it stronger than before. Resourceful guys.
They feel like the freest men in the world, right? That sense of freedom is huge for them initially.
Absolutely. Bound by nothing, roaming this vast territory. But then Pasquinel gets that obsession.
Lame Beaver's gold bullets, which leads him to Blue Leaf and then Clay Basket.
Yeah, and that marriage. Pasquinel marries Clay Basket, who loved someone else purely to get the gold secret. And McKeag is just appalled.
Not by the bigamy itself, which was common, but the manipulation.
Exactly. The source calls it a harsh misuse. It's a moral line Pasquinel crosses that really disturbs McKeag.
But Clay Basket's explanation years later, that her father, Cold Ears, told her to marry him because he respected Pasquinel's bravery.
Yeah.
That adds another layer.
It does. Makes it less purely transactional, from her side at least. Meanwhile, Pasquinel's back in St. Louis visiting his white wife, Lise.
Her fancy new brick house. Her father, doing well in silver, suggesting Pasquinel settle down.
But Pasquinel tries to bridge his 2 lives, takes Clay Basket and their sons on that trip to Fort Osage, trying to keep it secret from Lise.
Doesn't go well. Shock, the son, is difficult towards McKeag.
Yeah, contemptuous. Then there's a brawl at the fort. McKeag helps Pasquinel, gets taken for granted. Major Sibley basically tells Pasquinel he's too much trouble, tells him to leave.
And then Pasquinel just abandons Clay Basket and the boys again, takes the pelts to St. Louis, sees Lise, fathers another child.
Right. McKeag is furious, distressed by this deplorable behavior. But he stays loyal, won't badmouth Pasquinel to Buckweiss. It shows McKeag's character, even as the partnership fractures.
There's that little detail about McKeag trying Lapsang Souchong tea later, finding it deep and subtle. a man's tea.
Yeah, a nice touch. Shows him developing his own path, maybe.
Okay, shifting gears again, the sources bring in the Zendt story, Levi Zendt and the Mennonites back east.
Right. Starts simply enough. Courtship of Rebecca Stoltzfus, meeting at her market stall.
But then it blows up. Levi gets covered in soot from curing hams. His brother attacks him. The family gathers like judges. Intense.
Super intense. And then Reverend Fenstermacher's public prayer, calling Levi a sinner, descended to the level of beasts. Just brutal public shaming, using that specific pronunciation, Lewy, to make it sound worse.
And that leads to the shunning. Levi hears the rumors, sees in people's faces, his red face, trembling hands.
Yeah.
You feel his isolation.
And the source explains it wasn't about bad language they used earthy terms. It was his actions that were seen as a threat to the whole community.
Yeah.
Intolerable, hence the shunning.
So he buys that old Conestoga wagon for $20, a symbol of escape.
Totally. He knows he has to leave Lancaster. The shunning, the disgrace. He can't stay. Plans to head west.
And his talk with Ellie Zom is key, asking why she was shunned.
And she just says, bastard. Found on the church steps. That shared outsider status, plus realizing his family farm feels sour now, it seals his decision.
They can't get a proper license because of the shunning, so Reverend Aspinwall suggests a marriage in common, frontier solution.
Mrs. Aspinwall agrees to witness, and Ellie insists on paying $1 to make it feel proper to her. Practical woman.
So the journey west starts. Learning the horses, that awkward wedding night, Levi saying she's pretty enough for me, simple meal of Scrabble.
Yeah, very understated beginnings. Then the riverboat journey on the Robert Q. Fell, seeing those competing steamers getting tossed in their wake, Finnerty, the boat builder, just shouting, "Look at 'em go!" Unfazed.
Ellie's quick thinking comes in handy, suggesting they unload the wagon when they risk being left behind. Levi rushing to meet Captain Freak's deadline.
Can't wait more than 30. Yeah, the pressure's on. Then they meet Captain Mercy, join his party. Big turning point.
Freak's attitude. Cheaper to feed you than to lose you? Mercy gives real advice. Buy supplies, horses won't make it, consider oxen.
They like Franklin, Missouri, like Lancaster with common sense, the kind of place they hope to build. Might have stayed if asked.
They pass Fort Osage, see the rusty cannon, then Independence, rowdiest town. See that awful incident, the dead Pawnee left by the river.
Grim picture of frontier justice, or lack thereof. Then St. Joseph, Robidoux selling land, urging them to stay. Offers oxen for the horses again. Levi still refuses.
And that night, Oliver Sickham and Sam Purchase show up. Changes everything.
Right, now they're really heading into the unknown. Crossing the Missouri on that pitiful ferry. Perilous. A taste of what's coming.
Levi hates the slow oxen pace. Purchase reassures him. God, how they keep moving.
First conflict on the trail. Sunday rest. Fisher's Fraziers want to stop. Mercy Like Sense want to go. Purchase sides with the Missourians. Compromise. 6-day week.
Then the women complain Ellie ain't resting, just for writing in her diary. Petty tensions already.
Meanwhile, Seckham's getting disillusioned. Came looking for Rousseau's Noble Indian, found Comanche shooting arrows, Apache seemed worse. Decides nobility must be further north, maybe. Idealism hits reality hard.
The Platte River crossing sounds like a nightmare. Wide, shallow, treacherous.
Yeah, Seckham and another guy have to swim ropes across to guide the teams. Exhausting work.
Ellie writes about it. Pulled onto the northern shore just as the sun sank. A hard-won victory.
They finally reach Fort Laramie, last outpost before Oregon. And here, the story threads really start to tangle. They meet Lucinda McKeag.
17, tall, black hair, fair skin but clearly native heritage. She's interested in the dance. Culture clash and mix right there.
Farewell parties happen. Seckham dances a lot with Lucinda. Sparks speculation.
But Captain Mercy warns McKeag about Seckham. Not altogether reliable. Just as McKeag asks why, Sergeant Likes interrupts, grilling Purchase about his missing nose, adding to Purchase's shady vibe.
There's that Pasquinel family meeting too. Jake, Mike, Lucinda, Clay Basket, Captain Mercy. Talking land for a fort. Lost Eagle agrees. Sort of. Complex negotiations.
But the official treaty talks with Broken Thumb, the Cheyenne Chiefs, are tense. He's full of hate because of immigrants killing buffalo, cutting trees. Speaks of war. Jacques Pasquinel makes the interpretation even angrier.
Mercy's report notes Broken Thumb's hand was mangled by a trapper's wagon years ago. Layers of grievance.
Later, Broken Thumb confronts Mercy about whiskey destroying his people, about the cholera epidemic. His wife, kids died. He asks for help, desperate.
This accumulation of hardship, broken trust, it leads to Levi's breaking point. He tells Ellie, "I saw the elephant."
That frontier saying for hitting absolute bottom, seeing the futility, he has to turn back.
And Ellie just accepts it. No argument. but purchase. Pure contempt. Calls him turnaround.
But Levi gives him that chilling warning. In Oregon, sure as hell they're going to hang you. Sees Purchase's future in his vision.
Seckham just whistles and leaves with Purchase, heading west. Doesn't seem to care at all about Levi.
Levi figures out later Purchase had been up to something, which is why he wasn't bothered by turning back alone. Lingering question mark over Purchase.
So Levi heads back east. Meanwhile, Clay Basket intuits he's in trouble at Chalk Cliff. Sends Lucinda to help him.
Not McKeag, but Lucinda. Clay Basket says only Lucinda can save him, implying more than just physical rescue. Maybe save him from despair.
Could be. And maybe save Lucinda from guys like Purchase or Seckham too. Mother's intuition.
Then that amazing scene. Clay Basket and Lucinda just showing up at Lise Pasquinel's mansion in St. Louis. 7 a.m., unannounced.
Lisa's surprised, sure, but sees Lucinda's beauty, Clay Basket's dignity. Welcomes them. Says to McKeag, "What a splendid family you have." His reply, "They're Pasquinels, but I look after them." Sums it all up.
Lizette Pasquinel even consults both Lise and Clay Basket about a marriage proposal. Shows how the families have kind of merged, accepted each other.
Right. And then the gold theme pops up again. Spade Larkin. Found the Blue Valley lode Pasquinel obsessed over.
Big boom, big structures, railroad, then bust. Only lasted 3 years. Valley becomes an ugliest ghost town. Classic story.
And Larkin ends up drifting in Denver, telling his story about finding the mine for beers. Sad ending. The gold legend outlasts the players.
Okay, jump forward again. Major Mercy, maybe in his 70s now, is needed for another treaty negotiation. His long career continues. Lizette suggests McKeag should help too.
Mercy wants to meet near the South Platte, once Washakie of the Shoshone there. And what follows is this incredible gathering at Fort Laramie. Oglala Sioux chiefs arriving with everyone, kids, dogs, thousands of horses, unprecedented scale.
Levi Zendt is back, speaks some Ute, helps Mercy explain Fort Laramie is neutral ground. Washakie is wary of the Sioux and Cheyenne.
But Mercy tempts him with promises of food and presents from the Great Father. Pragmatic appeal. Washakie smiles and agrees. If there are to be presents, we will have to come. Mixture of need and suspicion.
But that treaty doesn't last. The sources describe a later brutal revision. Mercy and Agent Boone, Daniel Boone's grandson, are ordered to force the tribes to accept less.
Mercy is sick about it, the government just voiding a treaty he helped make, ordering him to sell it to the tribes. Deep moral crisis for him.
Lucinda arranges for the chiefs to meet at their farm. Mercy tries to explain the new terms, fumbles, embarrassed. Levi takes over, disgusted.
Yeah, the source says he fumbled along, not hiding his disgust. Even blames weak President Buchanan, tells the chiefs you can't depend upon him. Raw honesty about betrayal.
This betrayal and starvation just fuels more violence. March 1864. 2 Indians killed, scalped near settlements. 3 white women taken captive. Panic erupts.
White community wants a militia. Retaliation. Lizette Mercy despairs. Lost Eagle's peace path is failing. Her husband seems powerless. Just a dangerous vacuum.
And into that vacuum step General Asher, prudent Civil War hero, and Colonel Frank Skimmerhorn, the maniacal civilian. Military authority versus aggressive political ambition.
Lost Eagle insists they've kept their promises, no stealing, letting whites pass. Mercy confirms they don't even have guns.
Chief Black Knee cries out, "Disgust! We're starving. Our shame is as big as the earth." Just pure desperation.
And Mercy realizes the awful truth. Promises broken, tribes deliberately starved, disarmed, pushed by Skimmerhorn's provocations, his darkest hour. He sees the policy behind the conflict.
Skimmerhorn gets cheered in Denver for promising to settle the Indian question. Arrests anyone who gets in his way.
Pulls off that military miracle, moving troops through a snowstorm to Rattlesnake Buttes undetected, setting up the ambush.
Which leads to Sand Creek. Lost Eagle, thinking it's a mistake, dresses in uniform, steps out with a flag, and the cannons fire. Hope instantly destroyed.
Aftermath. Rumors Captain Reed's flank skedaddled. Skimmerhorn wants him court-martialed. Asher lets him resign quietly, covering tracks maybe? Jimmy Clark's testimony later is horrific. Soldiers using sabers on girls, revolvers on boys. Indiscriminate killing.
And then Mike Pasquinel's death. Levi thinks he can get him a fair trial. Decent men live around here. Makes white flags with Lucinda. They shout surrender.
But Skimmerhorn shoots Mike in the back from the newspaper office window, witnessed by the editor, breaking even the frontier code. You don't shoot a man in the back.
Skimmerhorn's disgrace lasts generations. His son feels it years later. There's that detail about Poteet finding his cattle safe near Rattlesnake Buttes after the troubles life goes on for the animals, unlike the people.
Right, and that brings us to the cattle drive era. Poteet hiring his crew Camby, Lasada, Nacho, Person, diverse group.
Starting the drive north from Texas. Fast pace, 15-18 miles a day across the desert to reach better grazing. Strategic.
Young Jim Lloyd tries to save a lost calf. Nacho hides it. Poteet ignores it. Some things a trail boss is wise not to hear. Pragmatism rules the trail.
Mexican traders show up with food. Nacho's happy. Some follow the herd, hoping to pick up strays, start their own herds. Informal trail economy.
Camp life. Nacho stew versus cowboy steaks. Whiskey rationed out. Skimmerhorn's son guarding horses. Poteet teaching life lessons on guard duty. Handle a gun, whiskey, a girl learn by doing. Thinking about Canby losing his arm.
They meet cavalry. The condescending captain warns about the Pettis boys, Kansas outlaws. Poteet's disgusted, thought they were past outlaw country.
Nope. Leads right to the shootout. Coker's Lamette shotgun blast described brutally. Jim Lloyd gets wounded but stands his ground, mostly out of fear, he says.
Coker shot because he thought he'd hit old Jim by mistake. Sad motivation. Then they debate the route. Lassiter defends the desert way, facing threats at the end of their string. More trail strategy. Pettis boys later kill a sheepman, adding to that conflict.
Okay, now the land itself becomes the focus. Ranches, claims, conflict over use. Levi offers that dry chalk cliff land he got from the Indians. Knows nothing grows there without water, but Brumbaugh knows Levi eventually got huge acreage.
Jim Lloyd and other cowboys file homestead claims for the ranch. Technically illegal, but they need the work. Seckham's building his Crown V ranch, needs British money, lots of land, harder than he thought.
And Levi makes that key observation. A farmer will always kill off the rancher because the farmer's tied to the land. Sees the fundamental conflict.
End of the buffalo hunts around 1873. Panic of 73 mentioned. Buffalo basically gone by 75. Huge ecological shift. Red Wolf decides the Cheyenne must submit, leave their land. Tragic consequence.
Amos Callender shows up again, not hunting, but collecting buffalo bones, $9 a ton. Jim Lloyd finds him at Chalk Cliff, scavenging the remains.
And while doing that, Levi spots something older. Purplish rock, bone sticking out, below the buffalo bones.
A scientist arrives, instantly IDs it, Morrison. Bullies the press, announces a huge dinosaur discovery on Levi's land. The deep past literally surfaces. More conflict over the land ensues.
Ranchers consolidate power, form the Cactus Club. Big shots, impeccable, powerful. Seckham and Charlotte are stretched thin by their mansion, wary of the cost. Financial pressure even on the elite.
Poteet gives that funny testimony about open range from Canada to Mexico. No fences, no bridges. Wishing it was still like that. Nostalgia for a lost era. Sheep versus cattle wars heat up. Poisoning. Claude Burker shoots 2 sheepmen. On Veniford, Skimmerhorn Jr. tries non-lethal, fails. Callender and Coker move sheep, continuing the fight.
Amidst this, we get Charlotte Seckham's perspective. She likes Line Camp 4, expects a proposal, but she's also assessing the business.
Sees Oliver lacks integrity, hires others for dirty work, respects Jim Lloyd more. Thinks Oliver's overextended, hopes he finds an honorable solution. Maybe resign, she's sharp.
And Seckham is over-leveraged, selling breeding stock for dividends, hoping calf numbers work out. Hard to prove counts on open range. Skimmerhorn keeps good records but stays loyal.
Others like Buckland and Perkin are skeptical, talking book count, mentioning guys who sold cattle they didn't own. Potential for fraud is high. Perkin digs into the numbers.
The sources detail the Veniford cattle breeding, crossing Longhorns with Herefords over generations. Result, 3132 Hereford. The original Longhorn is basically extinct on that ranch. Deliberate biological change.
And they praise the Herefords. White faces, red flanks. Clean, tough, easy to handle. Jim Lloyd loves them. Perfect for the place.
Jim Lloyd's personal journey continues. Goes back east, feels out of place. Family's awkward. Levi's strong reaction when Jim thinks of pursuing Clemma. Don't you care for your own daughter? Levi prays for her nightly. Dup concern.
Jim finds Clemma in Chicago. Fine-looking girl, good waitress. She's proud, tells him to leave, think. Then kisses him, declares, I intend to marry you. Bold move. Jim's undecided. Heart pounds when near her back at the Zendts. Pulled towards her.
New manager at Veniford, Beely Garrett. Capable guy. Knows cattle. Grew up with sheep but lost the smell. Became a true cattleman. Skill matters more than background.
Then a mention of the wider range wars. Cannett, the detective murderer for the Cheyenne Club. The Johnson County war invasion. Army steps in. Cattlemen had grievances, but it was vigilante stuff. Long-lasting bitterness, even noted as late as 1995 in the source commentary.
Brumbaugh arrives. Huge success with irrigation on the Platte. Dry river sections start flowing again thanks to him. Incredible efficiency, 50% recovery, water use 6-7 times. Platt still delivers water to Nebraska. World-class water management.
He grows melons, corn, beets. Feeds beets to cattle, no sugar factory. Complains men are too lazy to build a plant. Thinning beets is vital, tricky work. Hates seeing good plants pulled by mistake. Passionate farmer.
Beet pulp and molasses are great cattle feed. Hereford's spreading the news. Jim Lloyd worries about needing reliable labor for the future factory. Talks to Kurt Brumbaugh about an idea. Generations connecting.
Japanese immigrants arrive, the Takimotos. Want to buy a farm, seek legal help. Potato 78 Dizzy needs help, but hates to see them leave if they succeed. Loves the soil, plows tops back in, carts manure. Everything depends on the soil. Won't retire.
Then the story of Mexican labor. Tranquilino's journey starts grimly in Mexico. Miners stirred up. Father Graves gets farmers like Tranquilino to kill miners. Menace to Mexico. Then engineers need miners, Graves suggests Tranquilino. Dark beginnings?
Leads to migration north for work. Tranquilino finds beauty in New Mexico, Spanish speakers, cash jobs, a sweet secret.
His wife, Serafina Gomez. Quiet, clotted milk disposition, hardworking, cares for others. Millions like her. Energy's untapped. Tranquilino thinks of bringing family north. They don't blow up trains in Colorado. Chilling reference to home. Father Graves might leave too.
Mervyn Wendell does well in real estate, uses Union Pacific money, buys best land, sells worst first. Smart strategy. Promotes dryland farming with persuasive pamphlet, no hype, just stats, photos of nice homes. Sells the dream.
Dr. Creedy pushes dryland theory. Jethro Tull's ideas. Iowa farmers visit bleak Kansas land, skeptical but excited by Creevy's wild enthusiasm. Heart explodes. Pamphlet points them to Centennial.
Leads to the big debate. Jim Lloyd warns. Dry years, windstorms are real. Mervyn Wendell fires back. Jim and Brumbaugh just want to keep settlers out, protect their wealth. Mentions Jim marrying the boss's daughter. Watches them squirm, experience versus salesmanship. And finally, that Wendell secret. The source commentary reveals it. Mervyn's theatrical past, son Philip. Sheriff Dumeyer investigating missing Soren Sorensen. Philip performs, blind girl. Sees Dumeyer as threat, avoids trap question cleverly.
And years later, the author finds the body in a cave, interviews Philip's son, Morgan. Learns Philip confessed on his deathbed. Cold, honest, master of understatement. But he talked, admitted hiding the body. A dark secret literally buried in the land.
Wow. Okay, we've covered just an immense amount of ground here, a real deep dive into these sources you shared, from the slow buildup of rocks over millions of years, the complex way a Diplodocus worked, to the just raw reality of survival for humans and animals, the way cultures clashed, the hopes people brought, the heartbreaks they faced, and how individual choices crash into these huge hysterical forces like, expansion and fighting over resources.
Yeah, we saw people adapting, or, well, failing to adapt.
Yeah.
To the land, to each other. Those core drives are always there, aren't they? The beaver building, the rancher needing range, the farmer loving the soil, people chasing gold, or just a chance at a better life.
Yeah.
All playing out right here.
And the sources tie it all together so well. Geology, dinosaurs, native tribes losing everything, traders making deals and betrayals, settlers on those hard journeys, the rise of industry. It's all one big story connected to this one place.
So as we finish up, maybe a final thought to leave with you, something from all this material. Think about how the land itself, shaped by these incredible deep forces over millennia, just kept shaping the people who came later.
Right. Those fights over water, over gold, that goes right back to the geology, doesn't it? The clashes over territory, over ways of life. How much do those echoes, the ancient rocks, the animal instincts, the broken treaties, the fight to tame the land, how much of that still resonates in that place and maybe in the people there today?
Definitely gives you a lot to chew on. Thank you so much for sending over the material for this deep dive. It was absolutely fascinating.